Hi everyone, I'm Chris Montero, and today we're going to talk about wolves and some of their amazing adaptations as carnivores. And here we have a wolf skull replica. We're going to take a closer look later in this presentation. Do you know that a wolf has 42 teeth? That is 10 more teeth than an adult human being. But it's not that much about the number of teeth, but how specialized they are and why. It is amazing how much you can learn about an animal's diet, senses, and even its personal history just by taking a closer inspection to their skulls. So let's begin. Wolves are fascinating, and we have a very complex relationship with these animals for thousands of years. It depends where you look in terms of history or geography, you will find different ways in which human cultures relate to wolves, from fear and hatred to love and admiration. Just think about all the modern culture references about wolves from songs, movies, novels, and even the more traditional ways such as myths, legends, and even fairy tales. But I think it's very important to understand wolves for what they really are, extraordinary organisms, and to learn more about the ways they adapt to survive. And a great way to start is to look at what wolves eat and how do they eat it. The gray wolf is the largest member of the family Canidae, and all the members of this family are commonly known as canids or simply dogs. Today we have about 37 species of canids around the world. The origins of the family Canidae can be traced back in the fossil record to 40 million years ago. At that time, the world was a very odd place. There were tropical rainforests in Europe and horses the size of a bulldog. I also want to clarify, not all the animals in this slide are the same scale except for the wolf and the dog. Here we have some common members of the family Canidae: the African wild dog, a red fox, as I mentioned, a gray wolf and a dog. And that strange creature in the lower part of the screen, it's called an aguara or Maine wolf from South America, often described as a fox on stilts. Do you know that the very first animal that humans domesticated were actually wolves? All the dogs today are the living descendants of prehistoric wolves that humans domesticated about 40,000 years ago. In fact, the genetic blueprint of a dog is more than 99% the same as a wolf. Think about that. It means that an animal, as a corgi or a dachshund, from a perspective of genetics at least, is pretty much the same thing as a wolf, just a very small one. Wolves are an ancient species. Gray wolves, as we know them today, they are a few 100,000 years old. Some researchers believe they can be as old as 800,000 years. Wolves evolved in cold climates in the northern hemisphere, and they are perfectly adapted to survive in habitats such as the Arctic tundra or the boreal forest. But that did not stop wolves from colonizing warmer regions like the mountains of Mexico or the Arabian Peninsula. Wolves can travel enormous distances, and they are famous for the stamina, especially when they chase after their prey. And this is bringing us to a very important key point: what do wolves eat? It's not only about the type of food wolves eat, but also about how they hunt it and how they consume it. Wolves are carnivores, that's true, but they are not a picky species. Across the diverse habitats around the world, wolves adapt to local conditions. They can subsist, for example, on a diet of Arctic hare, and they call the regions of the Arctic tundra. And also, they can consume rodents or beavers when they are dispersing. In coastal habitats in Western North America, they can live on a diet of salmon, seafood, or even whale carcasses. I actually was very impressed when I learned that wolves in the Arctic regions of Canada hunt and eat even young polar bears. But the type of food that wolves are best adapted to hunt, you could say, quote unquote, their favorite food, are ungulates, also known as hoofed animals. And here we have some examples of ungulates from North America: elk, musk ox, deer, caribou, and bison, often called buffalo. Notice that ungulates are well armed with horns and antlers, in the case of male deer, and many species live in protective herds and can run at great speeds. And one single kick of their strong legs could be lethal. Also, many ungulates are way stronger and much larger than the wolf. Just for instance, look at the bison in the lower right. A fully grown bull can be as heavy as a ton. That is the weight of an old Volkswagen Beetle. So, what is the wolf's secret to deal with big and powerful prey? The answer is power in numbers. Wolves are social carnivores. And that is an evolutionary response, being social, to two big challenges. One, taking care of their young, and two, hunting big prey. Being social allows wolves to hunt big prey such as a moose. I don't know if you remember the Jungle Book. There's a famous poem that Mowgli recites, and he learned that from his animal family. And one phrase in that poem said something like, "The strength of the wolf is the pack." And that is absolutely true in terms of wolf societies. It's interesting to notice that not many large carnivores are social in the way wolves are. Think about, for example, African lions, hyenas, or African wild dogs, and that's pretty much it. Most of the large carnivores are actually solitary animals. Now, as you know, scientists name and classify organisms according to their relationships. Wolves and their family Canidae are classified in the order Carnivora. And here we have some representatives of different families of carnivores. We have a raccoon, whose family includes tropical relatives such as kinkajous and coatis, a grizzly bear for the bear family, a wolverine in behalf of the family of otters and weasels, a jaguar in behalf of the feline family, a wolf, of course, and a skunk. It's interesting to notice that skunks today are classified in their own family, and that's thanks to modern research in genetics. In the past, they were classified in the same group as wolverines. You might be surprised to hear that omnivorous animals such as skunks, raccoons, or bears are classified under the same carnivorous umbrella as wolves and jaguars. So, what is the criteria to define a carnivore? The common denominator for carnivores is found in their teeth. Teeth are extremely important for food consumption. Think, for example, our molars and the role in grinding and chewing food bites that otherwise would be too big for us to swallow. Teeth are also multitask tools. They can be used for display, defense, gnawing, or digging. In this photograph, we have a wolf skull. Notice on the left side the very long and sharp fangs. These are the canines. The canines are used as weapons. They're used for holding and killing the wolf's prey. Also, notice a colorizing green special set of teeth. These teeth are called carnassials. And these carnassials are the trademark of all carnivorous mammals. No other groups of mammals have carnassials because carnassials are for meat consumption. Notice they have very multiple tips and they're very sharp and pointy, like blades. I always say that if you look at carnassials from above, it looks like a miniature mountain range with very narrow summits. In fact, in some species of carnivores, the carnassials are in a special angle that every time the animal opens and closes the mouth, the carnassials are self-sharpening. I love this photograph because it shows perfectly well the carnassial teeth in action. Teeth like these operate like shearing scissors. They are basically for slicing chunks of meat that the animal can swallow. You'll notice a wolf or a bear or a tiger wouldn't necessarily bite a chunk of meat frontally, but they will use the carnassials for slicing smaller chunks. In fact, if you have a dog or a cat, next time you feed them meat, pay attention to the way they grab that meat and they eat it, because you will see exactly the same behavior you're seeing in this wolf and this tiger. They will position the meat on the cheek side of the face. That's exactly what the carnassials are. And you will notice they have these very long and intentional bites in order to engage the carnassials. In this other slide, we have two sets of carnassials for comparison. We have a wolf and a grizzly bear. Notice the difference. In the case of the wolf, the carnassials are pointy and long. In the case of the bear, the carnassials are blunt and more robust. Ask yourself why they will be so different. If you think that the answer is related to their diet, you are absolutely right. The grizzly bear is an omnivore. They don't need carnassials as developed as in the case of the wolf. In fact, carnassial teeth change from species to species depending on the percentage of meat that this animal consumes. Now, let's take a closer look at the carnassials of the bear and the wolf. Here I have both skulls side by side for comparison. The more robust on the left is the grizzly bear, and the one on the right is the gray wolf. Both animals have strong bites and a very powerful sense of smell. But notice their teeth. The grizzly is equipped with big and strong canines, but the molars are flat and blunt, and that is exactly what you would expect for an omnivore. In fact, I always say that bears' molars look like giant versions of human teeth. Grizzlies switch their diet seasonally, and most of their food is plant matter. In the case of the wolf, notice how most of the back teeth are pointy and sharp. Proportionally, also, the carnassials are larger and sharper in comparison to the grizzly. And of course, this is exactly what you would expect for a more carnivorous animal. Now, let's have a closer look to both sets of carnassials. Here we have a close-up to the bear's skull. We can appreciate the upper carnassial and the lower carnassial. And here we have a piece of Play-Doh. Imagine this will be a chunk of meat. I'm going to place it right here at the carnassial area and test the bite and see how deep it goes and how much of a surface area it covers. That's it. You can see the carnassials engage with a piece of meat, and it went almost all the way through. Look, and you can see the area of the bite is fairly broad. Now it's the turn to test the wolf carnassial. Now it's the turn of the wolf, as I mentioned, and here we have a close-up of its jaws. You have the upper carnassial and the lower carnassial in this area. And now we have another piece of fake Play-Doh meat. We're going to place it in the carnassials and see what happens. Give it a bite. Oh, look at that. It went all the way through, but also you can see the cutting section is sharper and more cleaner. It's almost like I use tools or scissors of some kind. And we're going to compare both pieces of Play-Doh in a few moments to see the difference. Now here we have both pieces of Play-Doh for comparison. Here we have the bite marks we created with the bear's carnassials, and here are the bite marks of the wolf. Notice the difference in shape and size and depth. Like in the case of the bear, we have a broader area with multiple ridges, and these are teeth that operate for grinding and chewing, which is exactly what you will expect in the case of an omnivore. In the case of the wolf, these carnassials left a more specialized mark. Notice this smooth, flat area, half moon shaped, and this is the result of a shearing action made by carnassials that are sharper and broader. And this is telling you, of course, this is a more specialized diet. This is a more carnivorous animal, like in the case of the wolf. Well, now we understand wolves better and some of their adaptations as carnivores. And I want to finish this conversation talking about conservation. In 2019, a group of researchers from Oregon State University found out that large carnivores around the world have lost 90% of their original territories. We're talking about 90% of the original range of animals such as bears, wolves, cougars, snow leopards. And this happened very quickly in the last 500 years. In geologic time, That's the blink of an eye. Now, what's the cause? Unfortunately, human beings. One of the greatest problems in conservation is habitat loss and habitat fragmentation caused by humans. Carnivores face additional challenges, for instance, being pursued and killed by human beings to the point that we are driving entire populations to extinction. You might have noticed that earlier in this presentation, when I was talking about the wolf's diet, I did not mention domestic livestock, and that was completely intentional because cows and sheep are not part of the traditional diet of wolves. Only when wolves are forced or driven to live too close to humans and they lose their fear and get accustomed to our presence, that's when the trouble starts. The bottom line is we human beings, we take too much land and too many resources that other organisms need to survive. When it comes to conservation of wolves and other carnivores, nobody has all the answers. It requires an interest, passion, and a lot of learning. Fortunately, there are a lot of organizations out there doing an excellent job, not only in conservation, but also in education about wolves. I recommend to you, a good place to start is by visiting the website and the Facebook of the Wolf Education and Research Center. I hope you enjoyed this presentation today. Thank you for your attention, and until next time.